Well, hello everybody. It's my pleasure today to welcome Ms. Monica Macoun. Monica is a counselling psychologist and she's a fellow of APS College of Counselling Psychologists and works in private practice. Now, we've had lots of questions from our consumers about the increased societal stress and stress on individuals that's been associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, and so we thought it would be good to get some advice from an expert as to how we might best employ some strategies that help me to stop worrying. I'm wondering if you might be able to share some strategies with us.
Okay, well, there's loads of strategies, and in the PowerPoint that I've shared with people, there's also some helpful apps that people can download. So Insight Timer is free and it's fabulous. There's also Russ Harris has a very good little YouTube film on helping with COVID, and it's got a lot of really good strategies. Mm-hmm. But two really important things. When you are stressed, one of the most important things that happens is your breathing changes. Also when you're angry, interestingly. Mm-hmm. So when someone is aware that they are becoming anxious, that's okay, it's normal. But there are things that we can do to reduce it. And one of the first things we often talk about is changing your breathing. And we've heard things where people say, take a deep breath. That is helpful. However, we often tend to focus on breathing in, whereas in actual fact, it's the breathing out that is just as important. So trying to lengthen the out breath. And the other little thing that can be key is pausing in the middle, holding your breath for a little bit in between. So some people find that by breathing in for the count of 1, holding it a bit, breathing out for 2, while you extend that breath, then in for 3, out for 4, and do that till you get to the count of 10. So changing your breathing is one of the most effective things that you can do. Another thing that's fantastic is that when we are anxious or stressed or upset, there's a part of our brain that tends to get triggered that is causing us to have a lot of the sensations that we're having. Mm-hmm. And it's a good part of the brain. It is a survival strategy. It can't hurt us, and yet sometimes it can be a little bit unpleasant. So there's one other strategy that I often teach. It has nothing to do with breathing, which a lot of people like, and all it does is it activates other parts of your brain and kind of calms the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that's going through that fight or flight response. So it's very simple. We call it grounding, and all we're doing is placing you 100% in this environment right now. And it's also a really helpful little thing you can do to turn off that little voice that's saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I'm getting annoyed, I'm getting upset, whatever. It'll just turn that off. And so
sorry, Monica. So is that something that we could do now, and you could talk me through step by step, and then our consumers can all be joining in at the same time?
Yep. So we'll do that now, and you might say the answers out loud, but if you're in public, you might say them in your head really quietly. So this strategy you can do when you're alone or when you're with other people. I do this because it involves 5 senses, but in actual fact, we ask 6 questions. If you forget about the last one, it's okay. First question, what can I see? And all you do is name. So I'll get you to answer that now. What can you see? Pick about 5 things.
I can see a pen, pencil, some hand sanitizer, of course, a water bottle, and my computer screen.
And what can you hear?
I can hear a slight buzzing noise in the background. That's the overarching sound at the moment. I don't hear much else.
What can you smell?
I can smell, I had some lunch a couple of hours ago and I still got that smell of that aroma sitting in the room.
And what can you taste?
Lunch from about 2 hours ago still.
And what can you feel with your hands actually?
My hands are resting on my desk. I don't have anything in them and they're relaxed and they feel comfortable. They're not gripping, they're not tight. I'm feeling through this conversation quite non-anxious and quite settled.
And finally, even though you've answered it once already, what can you see?
I can see a water bottle, a pen, pencil, some hand sanitizer and my computer screen.
Lovely. So most people find that by going through that, their stress levels just go down a little bit. There's no right or wrong answers. The only thing I encourage people when it comes to what can I feel, that's why I sort of said your hands, rather than saying, oh, I can feel my heart thumping and I've got a raging headache, focus on what you can actually feel. And what it does is it triggers the part of your brain that is responsible for naming things. And it also helps us become aware of our environment. And even when we're anxious, we still want to be aware of our environment. And the other thing is when we get to what can I hear, and you're actually really listening, you know, whether it's a bird I can hear or a noise or whatever, you're stopping the internal voice that's saying, oh my gosh, this is driving me crazy. I just want to thump somebody. And so it tends to be very helpful. So it's just those 5 senses. And if you come up with 5 things, you don't have to, but it's a very helpful technique.
Well, thank you, Monica, because I found that even though I'm not feeling particularly stressed, just going through that process calmed me down. So even if you're not coming from a stressful or a heightened position of stress, just going through that exercise could be a really helpful calming strategy to engage in.
It's actually a good point, Jennifer, because if people practice it even when they're not stressed, then they'll be more used to knowing what they're supposed to do, so that when they are anxious, they'll be able to think of doing that strategy. So I actually encourage people to practice it quite regularly, a number of times in the day, for example.
So it's more going on autopilot, so that when you are stressed out and you've got lots of things going around your head and you can't quite get the filter right, that this just becomes an automatic response.
Yeah, because when we get stressed, we tend to get lost with our thoughts rather than stepping back and noticing, oh, I'm getting a bit annoyed about that. I wonder what that's about and why and what can I do about it, getting back to what can I do, and then sort of taking some positive steps rather than getting lost with the thinking and the thoughts, and that just tends to just help us get carried away.
Well, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you giving your time and sharing all of those tips and strategies and answers to our questions. It's been helpful for me. It's of course there to serve our consumers with their questions, and I know that they're going to find this an incredibly helpful piece for them. So thank you once again for joining us and for sharing your time with us.
You're very, very welcome. I'm wishing everybody all the best of health.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care.